I made this today because I like giving you visuals. Now, I want to point out a few things. You see, there is a pathway. Hello, if I can be a contortionist. You can see that there is a pathway, other armsel. There's a pathway that goes around this. Pathway goes around, and there's one on the other side. I'm just going to tell you, stairways have been built in many wooded, pardon me, my darling, thank you so much. Stairways have been built in many wooded areas all over the world. Nobody really knows who does it because they're done behind the scenes. So here's the story, my darlings. I went out with a paranormal group into a haunted woods. This was in Tennessee. We were not on federal property, by the way, and I want to say this. Anytime you feel like you want to do a haunting on federal property, which is your national parks, you need to tell the park rangers and whomever that you were there and what you're doing. Just as a little disclosure. And I mean, that's, just so you, this was not. This was a haunted woods that has been labeled as haunted for a long time. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, first of all, I need water. This isn't cutting it, what I have in here. I should have drank some pickle juice. That is so much better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, water bottle. Thank you, my darlings. I'm sorry I keep hitting this. We're going to put this over here. Sometimes they'll let you, sometimes you won't. If you go in Tennessee and you say, look, I'm not going to go in here because they're worried about you getting lost. And they don't, that's uncool. And especially in Tennessee, there are underground caverns and all kinds of different things that you've got to be careful, extremely careful. So I went out with this paranormal group, and I've said before, I don't like to go out with groups that think it's funny, that laugh and carry on. And now, hello, we know that I do that a little bit here. But I mean, take it seriously. When you go into a place like this, make sure you're grounded. I always make sure I'm grounded before I go in. We've got whatever. I don't wear my jewelry. I do wear my ring, all these other things. And make sure that you don't have a piece of fur in your mouth from Shaggy walking through. There we are. So I was a little on the fence with this group because they like to dress up, they're big about being loud. And I'm going to tell you, you go on an investigation with me, I am not loud at all. I whisper. I don't, there's no folly with me. I don't mess around. I just am funny about it. It's a respect thing. And plus, you want to be able to hear and be aware of your surroundings. So I was on the fence with this group. I think they have since I know they have since disbanded. Okay, so they're no longer around. But this has been a few years ago. And so they begged and begged and begged and begged and begged. This was before 2018. And finally I gave in and I said, okay, but my rules. I don't go where everybody wants a competition, where you're out there and you're saying, okay, because I believe that you need to have one who is a clairvoyant or a psychic, one who is a demonologist, one who works this equipment, one who works that equipment, one that does the lighting, one that doesn't. If you get a bunch of people together, you're going to have problems. So I was told on the way out to this haunting that there would be another psychic. Well, I don't have a problem with that. Nobody should have a problem with me. So we go out there, and right away, this young lady, oh, I just want you to know that I'm the psychic with this group. Okay, nice to meet you. Thank you. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right? I mean, that's the hello, Zelda, turn your foot around and kick yourself in the butt because what are you doing? So and I said, so tell me a little bit about this forest. Tell me about, because it was a forest and it was dense like this. And I said, what about this? Well, they had some sightings of, there was somebody that had been unalived, the stories, and there were people that were there, and there were things that would chase you, and all this other. And I said, okay, all right, now listen, I ain't running. So I'm not running. I'm not running. So anyway, that right. It's like a competition, and I don't care. That's the whole thing. But you don't set boundaries, like you work together, because everybody's gift is different. That's the way it goes. So there wasn't any real organization. We're out there, we're walking. Now, I like to walk single file, and I like to keep checking on the person behind me to make sure they're okay. I always take a bottle of water with me. I always take a little tissue. I always take, there's my little supplies. I take an extra battery if I've got one. If I've got my phone, I just you work it out. So I have a little backpack on, and I've got my EVP, and I like to look around when you're going. I don't want my face like this into something. I want to look around. Lo and behold, my darlings, we get up to this one place, and they kept telling me there was an old homestead. And hey, they're all over Tennessee in the woods now, I'm telling you. And I'm like, well, that might be cool. I wouldn't mind seeing an old homestead, long as everybody's cool. Well, this was it. Now, this is not an old homestead. We get here, and they looked at me and they said, well, we're here. And I said, we're here what? Well, this is the homestead. Honey, this is no homestead. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. So what do? And especially this young lady running up and down these steps, making a noise, whooping and hollering, posing for selfies, all this other. And I'm thinking, I need to get out of here. And finally, I just said, you know what? I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Would you all mind if I left? And you guys, oh no, you can't leave. You're supposed to be with us. You're the psychic. And, well, what they wanted was to go out with me so I would put them on my YouTube channel or put them on, at that time it was Facebook. And I said, I only do that with serious groups. If you're serious, then I do that. And I will promote you, and we'll go out together and we'll do this. But I don't think you're serious. And at that point, I really thought, oh boy, I'm going to get my hind end handed to me, because these people were not happy when I was saying this. And I said, but you never know. Let's keep going. Let's think, and things calm down. So they're running up and down these steps. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this girl, the psychic, run up the steps and she was running hard. She ran up the steps, jumped off, and was gone. And we all looked at each other and they're like, oh my God, where did she go? And I'm like, I told you guys not to play around with this. We don't know where she went. But I said, she's not here. She is somewhere else in this forest. And let's hope we can find her. So we got off into twos. We paired off into twos. There was one that had three. There was a young man and I that were together. He was the nicest guy, nicest. And he's telling me, he said, I am so sick of these people. And I said, well, this is not a time and place for this conversation. We have to find her regardless. And he said, did you see what happened? I said, I saw it. Everybody else did. She just took off running, runs up, jumps off, and disappears. So it was getting late. It was getting late. And it was getting dark, just like this. And you know, when you're in the forest and in the woods, it gets dark. I've got a flashlight with me. A lot of people have their phones. And, you know, we were staying within and we were hollering for her. We were, you know, and I just basically said, you know, I think it's time we need to follow this trail. We need to mark our trail where we are. And we need to mark it with some sticks, do something upright, and we need to go back and we need to call the police. So we called the police. The police were not very happy at all. So they pull me to the side because I'm the oldest one in the group. Hello. They pull me to the side and they said, what are you doing bringing these kids out here? And I said, wait a minute. Hold on now. Hold on, copper. I didn't bring them. I was their guest. I never even knew this place existed. I told them that I wanted to leave and they were getting a little huffy. So I wanted to dial back a little bit. So we did. And he looks at me and goes, this has happened before. And I said, what's happened before? He said, kids playing on these stairs and they disappear. And I said, maybe it would be a good thing to put a sign up on the trail. Maybe it would be good if you put a warning up. Maybe, do you think? And he said, well, no, because we are afraid if we tell people that, then they'll really come out. And I said, well, yeah, I know. It's that you tell people not to do something, that's when they want to do it, right? And I said, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do? And he said, well, you're the psychic. Tell me where she is. I said, she's not here. She's not here. I said, she's gone. He said, what do you mean gone? And I said, she's not in the woods. She's not in this dimension. She is gone. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, I said, you need to get a search party because the earlier you can search those woods, the better you're going to have a chance of finding her. So I stayed behind because I didn't want to, I mean, at that point, I didn't want to say, ciao, I'm going to go off and get Chinese. Let me know how things go. You know, I need a piece of pie and coffee. Where's the nearest place? I'm going to go. I wish I could have. Believe me, I certainly thought about it because it burned me up. And that's the irresponsibility that I have. And there's two young men that are pretty well known, and I'm not going to mention their names. It's no shade on anybody, but it drives me crazy to see them. And it drives me crazy to see all this other. So the police came, they called parents, they called other people, they called, you know, there were neighbors that came out, they brought some cadaver dogs. No kidding. I said, isn't it a little bit early to bring out the pups? And they said, no, no, it's not. I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to, I'm sitting there thinking, what am I supposed to do? Because you feel helpless in this situation. They called off the search for the night. And I felt so bad. And I said, can I come back to the station with you? And they're like, yeah. And I said, do you have any maps? Yeah. I said, I have my pendulum with me. Let's go back to the station. You got any coffee? And he goes, yeah, let's send out from some sandwiches. And I'm like, okay, baby, I'm there with you. So we go back to the police. And it's this little, the towns in Tennessee are smaller. Pardon me. And this wasn't a big town. It was small enough to know. So we get back to we get back to the police department. There was nobody else in there. And I sat and I talked to this deputy, and she was so nice. She was young, but she had been on the job for a while. She was so nice. And I said, I want to know what happened to the other people. And he said, they've never found them again. And I said, what do you think the odds are of us finding this young woman? Yeah, ham sandwich, hello. I said, what are the odds of us finding this young woman? And he looked at me and he went, I said, we need to do the best we can do. Where's your maps? So they get out these maps, and they were just as fascinated with this as I was with them, because I was very fascinated with them, because it was like that they knew something and they didn't want to tell me. It's kind of like that. And they were a little intimidated, thinking, and he said, are you sure this is not foul play? And I said, look, my darling, and there I am in the police station calling the coppers darlings, but hello, they forgave me. I said, look, she backed up on the trail this way. She backed up this way on the trail and took a running leap and ran up those steps. And you did not see her do this. Okay, so this is the top of the step. You didn't see her do this. She went up like this and disappeared midair. We all saw her. And it's one of those things, like, you think, did I really see that? So we've got, and I thought I had my pendulum. I did not. So I said, look, I need a shoestring, and I had my ring on. I need a shoestring. I need something. So they got a shoestring out of one of their gym shoes. And so there I am on the map. And I said, she's over here. And he said, that's impossibility. There's no way. That is like miles away from where that is right now. She would never make it on foot. She's over there. So he said, we need to load up some people. And I said, I'm going with you. Now, this was summer, and it was hot, and there were bugs. But I went. So I just basically said, I'm going with you. We're going to go out. We're going to find her. We drove, and it literally felt like we drove for hours. They had an SUV. I rode in the front seat with the lady. That we talked about this sort of thing. She told me how she believed in ghost stories and all this, and how her grandfather lived in a haunted house. And I mean, we were talking but it just seemed like we went for hours. We didn't, but it seemed that way. So we got cut off, and my darlings, there were ravines. I mean, it was like this. So they're telling me, you got to be careful where you stand. And we all had these big sticks. You poke it in front of you before you take a step. We got to this certain place, And they said, this is where you said she's going to be, and she's not here. And I said, let's start yelling. Let's start yelling. So we did. We started yelling for her. We started yelling. All of a sudden, we heard a scream. Pardon me, as if, how can I describe it? As if it were coming from a hole. But it just kept getting louder, like she was getting close, like she was falling. It almost felt like, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it just kept getting louder and louder. And about 20 feet in front of us, she was there. She was there. And she was screaming. You know that B movie scream, the one that I'm so jealous of. I wish, you hear this thing, and I'm always the one going, oh, right? Hello. And she was screaming. I've never heard such a scream. We got to her. They called for the ambulance. They helped her up. Now, I didn't go near because I thought, we've got to let the police do what it is that they do. That female police, she was wonderful. So they got her to the road. They got her to the road. They got her into the ambulance. And she just kept looking at me. And she was like in shock, catatonic, kind of, and was doing the thing. And if you saw it, believe me, Stephen King could not replicate that moment. That stayed with me for a long time. And she's reaching out to me. I grabbed her hand, and her hand was soaked, like wet, soaked, like she had been in the ocean, but the rest of her wasn't. And it was not perspiration. And it was like it. And I looked at the one EMT and I said, what is this? And he said, well, not like they didn't know. They didn't know. So I'm holding her hand, and she's finally looking at me and going, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I said, oh my gosh, you don't never apologize to me. It's just, hey, you're living your best life now. And she's like, no. And so the EMT was kind of working there. And I looked at her and I said, honey, you got to tell me, where were you? And she said, I was floating. I said, what do you mean you were floating? She said, I said, so what happened when you jumped? I said, because you didn't go down. So she, just remember, when she jumped off here, she did not go down. Gravity did not, she went up. Now, I don't think it was ectoplasm, because ectoplasm can be a little bit on the sticky side, and it was not. It was not like a jelly. It was not like Vaseline. It was not like, it was literally like water. Then it was just one hand. If it was ectoplasm, she should have at least had it up to her elbows and up to her knees, and her hair should have had it in from an entry point and exit point. So I said, what do you mean you were floating? She said it was dark. She said it was dark. She said I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. And I kept praying, please find me. Please find me. Please find me. Please find me. And I said, oh, honey. I mean, in the back of my brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a horrible experience. And I said, you're found now. She said, am I? Or am I just dreaming? I said, no, you're okay. You're found now. They're going to take you to the hospital. Who do we call? And of course, the police, whatever. And that was it. These people, they disbanded. I did reach out to them and I said, how is she? And they were very, um, they didn't talk much about it. I finally was able, because I was going through there on my way from Sevier County, which is Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, over to Nashville. And I thought, you know what? There's that exit. I'm going to go off. And I stopped into the police department. That girl, the police officer, the sheriff, I guess, that I was talking to wasn't on or wasn't available. But I asked a couple of other people and they said, she's gone. And I said, what do you mean she's gone? He said, oh no, she's just checked out. I said, really? Have they tried to? He said, she'll never be the same again. And he said, what the heck was that? And I told him what happened. He goes, yeah, we got the report. And there's, he got the report out. We're looking at that. And I said, I want to see the other reports. Can we see the other reports? And you know what he said? After this happened, there was an agency that came in and took the other reports. There were 3 other instances other than this that happened. And he said it wasn't long after that some agency said they were from some government, came in, looked at their files, decided to take the files with them. They thanked them, and away they went. I said, well, that's cool. My name's all over, so I'll probably be getting a visit. But I never did. I just never did. Yeah, that's X-Files stuff. Never did. And I told him, I said, you know what? You need to, I think it was kind of beyond alphabet, above alphabets. And I said, you know what? You need to go in and you need to block off that, because you can't destroy it. You don't know what it would do. So it's a portal. It was definitely a portal. But nobody really understands or knows what these things are all about. Nobody knows who, I mean, we have inklings, we have thoughts, but you can't destroy it. It's just like Annabelle. That is another thing. You can't destroy it. So what are you going to do? So that is the story of, I don't go into woods with other people if they are messing around and silly. If you see stairs, now I've seen them since. I've seen stairways like this, and you know what I do? Oh, hi. Cut and run. That's, there's absolutely no flipping way. And this girl, I won't see her again. I would like to, but she's totally just flipped out. She's heavily medicated, because your mind can take everything one step further and mess with you for the rest of your life. Right, honey? Right. And the thing of it is, since you don't know what to do, what do you do? Now, they asked me what I thought, and I said, look, I am certainly not an expert. But here's what I would do. I would put iron stakes around it, pure iron. Put iron stakes all the way around it. I might put a sign up that says danger. But the problem is, like the coppers said, I always call them coppers. Sorry, if you're a copper out there, you know I love you because you're top shelf. If you're not like the ones up in Canton that are bad, I don't think salt won't cut this. Sage won't cut it. You're talking either very demonic or you're talking other dimension type stuff. So basically I just said salt, and that's it. Or, not salt, iron. Put iron around, iron stakes around. But it's like the copper said, you start making a big deal, you start announcing it, and people are going to get out there and get hurt because they want to see. And what are you going to do if you can't claw somebody back? What are you going to do? It's just weird. Just weird. So that's my first story, my darlings. The kappas. The kappas. I like kappas. I was married to one once. I was kappa. The kappas. So yeah, let me change. But yeah, the teenagers, hello, because hello, I was a teenager. I told you last week of the story. I was a teenager once. Certainly you don't think, and even not so teenagers, you just, So got another one for you. Got another one. Let me change my background. I say I like to change backgrounds, my darlings. So, and this is about a haunted house. So we're going to put up the one that we had. How long ago was this? This was about, thank you, Karen, for asking that question. 2015, maybe 2015. It wasn't that really that long, maybe 10 years ago. Wasn't that long. Who you going to call, right? It wasn't that long ago. Wasn't that long ago. So yeah, if you see the stairways in the woods, goodbye. No picnics, no running, no jumping, no craziness. So, and it's one of those things you don't know how far to take it, right? You just don't know how far to take, and you don't want to overstep or go around because if somebody came in and took the other 3 files as well as this for this young lady. Someone just sent me a Venmo. Thank you so much. Hold to one. Oh, and there's rain happening. Let me see here, my darling. I need to turn this. Somebody's trying to text me. I need to turn my phone into do not disturb. Do not disturb Zelda. Hello. We have one in New Hampshire. Oh, Karen. Madame Cherie. The house burned, but the stairs remained. She was high society in the early 1900s. Whoa. Now, I would like to see that. I don't play around, but I'd like to see. I'd like to see that. I watch those Skinwalker Ranch things only because of my experience that I had in Tennessee, in Sevier County, at a cabin. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk about the haunted house. Oh, thanks, Karen. Let's talk about a haunted house. This haunted house was in Ohio. Hello, I did a lot of stepping out in Ohio. This was with another young woman and her husband. Now, I think I told you about the cemetery that had the Civil War soldiers, and I was 16 when I went there, and I saw they put the picture of the Civil War soldier um, on the tombstone, on the gravestone, and how I just felt horrible about. Oh my goodness, I've now down the road was a big house that was twice as big as this joint, white but dilapidated, huge, big. And it was on, like, so you're driving down this gravel road, and it was just a little one-way gravel road, and you make a sharp, what they call in Ohio, a hairpin turn. So it was a very sharp turn, and on that hairpin turn was this grown little drive, and you go through, and there stood this house that was abandoned and empty. Now, we heard some things about this house, and primarily that it was owned by a witch. Now, witches don't scare me. I know a lot of people who are practitioners, and I don't like the name witch, but she was a witch. She look what happened. Pardon me. So here's Shaggy Noodle. Come here. If you're going to bug me, you're going to get in shot. Say hello to Shaggy. You should hear him purr. Yes, I know a lot of people who practice who, it's like me. I don't like the name psychic, but I am. Let me take this off. I don't like the name psychic, so it is what it is. But she was that cauldron, not so good witch. We're just going to call her this. Pardon me. So we go in this house. Now, we had heard some things. Like there was a white dog. Sammy is over here curled up in a little ball, sleeping by the window. So yeah, there we go. So we heard legend had it that there was a white dog. Pickle Juice says, hey, I need to jump up and take some pickle juice. It would be amazing, wouldn't it? I maybe need to do that. So she had a white dog that still in spirit ran around the woods that were around it. I mean, it was overgrown. It was a scary, scary place. And so, of course, this young lady, myself and her husband, had to go. So we're riding in his pickup truck. We go through there. And if anybody wants to know, it is near Danville, Ohio, and the house has been torn down. So we go to this house. It was daylight because I didn't want to go in the dark. No, none of us did. We go in, we walk around the house. Now the house was completely empty, but you just kind of got this eerie feel about it. And I think a lot of it was because, well, are we supposed to be here? Right? I mean, there were no trespassing signs, and you didn't know who owned it. It was just a house that through the century, yes, Ohio is full of intense hauntings. That's right. I grew up in this, So we go in through the front door. We're looking around. And the young man decides we're going to call him Jim. Jim decides that he's going to go upstairs and look around and, see everything. All of the sudden, we heard this clamoring, commotion, horrible, upset, crash, bang, and then it was quiet. And then all of a sudden, on the inside of the door, we heard a so she and I look at each other. I go over, open the door, and here it's Jim. We said, "What the heck happened?" And he said, "I opened the door upstairs." It's funny now. He said, "I opened a door upstairs and I walked into this room and fell through the floor." And he came down through this closet. I mean, his arms were bruised. He was a little banged up. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that'll teach you not to be going in, moseying around too much." So we're looking around. All of a sudden, there's another door. And it was kind of like behind a cabinet. So we move the cabinet a little bit and we open this door. And there's this staircase. I'm not kidding. This was like Dark Shadows quality. Move the cabinet a little bit and you open this door and the door is like hello, this wide. So and there's this spiral wooden staircase that went down underneath the house. We go down these steps. We make Jim go first. And he stops at the bottom of the stairs, and he looks over at her and he says, "What is this?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Wait till you see." Now we had flashlights. I mean, it was dark in this house. You know how you can get into, yeah, poor Jim. I was laughing like crazy. But so poor Jim, is this moochies time? Poor Jim, but this scared him. We had flashlights. I mean, he had a hammer, hello, let's beat off a ghost or two. And so we get down at the bottom of the steps, and it was this dark, dungeony looking dirt floor, some tables, some jars that were, hey, no, you don't do, buddy, no. He gets mine? No. There were some jars, canning jars, but they didn't look like food was in them. They were kind of sitting around and broken. And I said, "You know what? I think I've had enough of this joint." And we just all collectively said, yeah. And there were other rooms, but I just didn't want to go in there. I just didn't want to do it. We go out through this house. Now, here's the rub. We go back out through this house, and what happens? I have my dad's car again. I have my dad's car. Now, this road in this area of Ohio, one side, and this gravel, it's like deep gravel road. So on one side of the road, on the driver's side, it goes right down into this steep ravine with this water, a creek, not a big river, but a creek running down at the bottom. On the other side, it goes straight up. There's, you can tell it's dirt and there's some trees and everything, but it goes straight up. So I'm driving. I got my dad's car. Hello, my poor dad's car. And he just got it too, and it was a Chevelle. It It was not, why do you think I drove it? Hello. So we get down where I'm driving. All of a sudden, because Jim had his truck, I had my dad's car. We, okay, let me explain this. We decided to leave Jim's truck at the cemetery when we were done because we wanted to go. There was a little drive-in, you know, the drive-ins where you go up and you get an ice cream cone and a slushie. Hello, what is wrong with me? You every time this, you know, hey, you got beat up falling through a floor. Let's go get a cup of coffee and a piece of pie and a slushie and some ice cream. So he said, well, you know, there's no sense in all of it. We'll go down there. I said, I'll drive. I'll drive. I know where I'm going. I'll drive. It's the little place where, you know, you can get the nickel ice cream cones, you know. I'm driving. All of a sudden, him and her screaming, look out, look out. There's a white dog, a white German Shepherd that comes down off the hill and runs right in front. And I swerved to miss it. And daggone, if that gravel didn't get me, and I went down over this ravine. And we were all like, oh my God, because you know, you can't steer your car. And the only thing that I could do, because we were traveling fast and we were heading for that money, water. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be grounded until I'm 45. Because this is the second time, hello, we're heading down this ravine very, very quickly. And I see this log lying there. I try to hit this log because I knew it was going to slow us down. And it did. And I veered it over. And we hit a tree head on. Like this. If we wouldn't have hit that tree, we would have been in the water. I don't swim that well. So remember, this is a time, no cell phones, no nothing. And it's getting dark. And I just sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, my dad is just going to unalive me today. So she's like, no, we'll tell him. It's okay. We'll tell him. And he had just bought this car. So Jim decides he's going to hike up to the road and he sees somebody, flags him down. He said, look, we went down over the drink. Can you get a tow truck here? Can you get the sheriff? So the sheriff pulls up. Right away, how old are you? He asked me. Well, she'd ask me now. How old are you? Old enough to know better, but too young to resist. No, ma'am. How old are you? How old are you? 18. So we get up to the top. Because there's no way that I could have called my dad. So, I mean, it was dark. So there's a tow truck that comes. We go down, you know, whatever. So we get back up. It's up on the road. It's not drivable. Thank God Jim had his truck. So we're talking to the sheriff. We're talking to the sheriff. And the sheriff looks and he says, what are you guys doing? I said, well, I'm just going to be very frank with you. We were over here at the witch's house. And he was like, and he said, and tell me, you saw a white dog. And we were always like, yeah, we did see a white dog. It came jumping down over here. And he goes, I tell you kids constantly, do not come here. And I said, well, you didn't tell us. We didn't see you. And that place is weird and we're not going to go back. And he said, yes, it is weird. And he said, we don't know what that dog is. He said, where did it go? And I said, it just disappeared. I said, the moment that I lost control and fishtailed and went down over the drink, it was gone. I said, I said, at first I thought maybe I ran over it. And he goes, no, you didn't run over it. That's her dog. I said, well, what's going to happen? He goes, well, first of all, we're going to tear that house down. There's a big, he went on to this big town meeting thing. And I said, well, have you been in the basement? And he goes, I've heard. So we finally got everything, my dad's car was okay, just had a flat tire, bunged up the front a little bit, busted the radiator. The hood needed to, and the front bumper needed to be pulled out, just little minor stuff. So we get back and we walk in and there's Dad. I said, Dad, I am so sorry, but I lost control. Well, he was more scared of his insurance company. I said, oh, first of all, I'm okay. I just want to let you know, these two are okay. We're fine. And he said, I just brought this car. This insurance company is going to drop. They're not going to drop you. So the next morning, I'm shaking like a puppy pooping razor blades, thinking I am in such trouble. Well, he sits there. He said, now you're going to sit here and you're going to tell this insurance agent what happened. I said, I don't have to. There's a police report. He said, listen, smarty boots, you're going to tell this insurance company. Okay, I'm right here. I'm right here. Everybody had seatbelts. We didn't wear them. It was back in the day. It wasn't the law that you had to wear a seatbelt. So don't even know if the car had seatbelts. Now I wear my seatbelt all the time. I'd wear my seatbelt here if I had to. So finally, he gets our family friend on the phone and said, listen, Zell had a little fender bender. And she started laughing. She goes, a little one? He said, well, a medium one. She said, well, is she okay? He goes, I think so. I'm sitting there thinking, thanks. And he said, oh, she said, well, do you have the police report? He said, yeah. I said, bring it by, Russ. We'll take care of it. No worries. Just pay. We'll just take the deductible out of the payment. Cost back then $350 to fix. The deductible was $50. And so I had to pay $50 to my dad. But that was it. And we knew not to go down there again. So that was, some time had passed. I had gotten married, moved away, came back to visit. And I thought, I want to go to that cemetery. I don't want to go to that house. I just want to go past. I'm not going to go, whatever. I'm not going to go, blah. And he said, and so my husband at the time said, isn't this the place where you wrecked your dad's car? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, those were the days. That's right. $50 deductible. But, back then $50 was $50. And I could do a lot of damage with $50. Anyway, so the house wasn't there. All you could see was the foundation, and that was it. The house wasn't there. I was so glad. And then we went went to this home because it was for sale. And when I was moving to Virginia 100 years ago, I was actually studying at the Edgar Cayce Foundation. I was big into Psychic Friends Network. I was big into this. So I didn't announce anything, but I was married to a Navy commander. He was out to sea. I was looking at houses. What's new? That's what I always was. So I saw that there was a historic house on the market. I think it's over 100 years old because from my understanding, it was built during the Civil War. Yes. So it was about 125 years when I saw it. Yes, I was there and watched them build it. Yeah, 125 years. That's me. So, my darlings, I answered this ad. I decided to go there, didn't think anything about it. The realtor kind of acted funny. And she told me, she said, this may be a renovation project for you. And I said, that's fine. I'm not scared about that. I've got, I'm going to be a stay-at-home wife. I have a job where I work on the telephone. Of course, I'm not going to tell her what I do. And so I said, I will, I can definitely. And at that time, I had 3 cats, Tippy, Canoe, and Tyler too, of all things, because I was big into the historical stuff into Virginia. So I had Tippy, Canoe, and Tyler too. Goodbye. So answered this ad, talking to the realtor, and she acted a little funny. It was kind of this, a little off-putting, just a little, she was not keen. Yeah, and realtor, I love realtors because when they go into a house, buddy, they sell you. And I want to buy what you're selling, so you better sell me. But this lady was not. She was hesitant. She was all kinds of things. She was hesitant. And so, just so you know, I got there a little early and I was walking around the outside. And I'm always wondering, and my policy on going to haunted places. And when I pulled up, I thought, okay, here we go. This is going to be a good one. So I'm looking up. The outside was gorgeous. It needed work, but in my eyes, it was gorgeous because it was all original. I'm surprised that someone had not put it on the National Registry for Historic Places. As I was looking up, because I always look up, as I was looking up, it looked like someone upstairs just went past the window, the shadow. And you know how that is. You're looking into a window, and these were original windows. Come on, sister. She had to go get a drinky, so she's right back. This kind of stuff makes her thirsty. So had the original windows. And if you don't know what 100-year-old windows look like, they're not clear. You can see out, you can see in, but they look like they've got a swirl in them. Right, Sammy? So I'm thinking, oh, okay, somebody's here right now. So I go around, I go up on the porch, and the porch was just, I could just eat it because it's so beautiful. The porch was gorgeous. The porch was just, I think it was kind of like a leaded glass, yeah. The porch was just phenomenal, huge, wrap around, gorgeous. And it was just so much character. Stone around the perimeter of the porch, and you had to go up like 4 or 5 steps to go. And this big, and they called them, back then, they called it a coffin door. And the reason they called it a coffin door is because that's when if somebody passed away, pardon me, that's when they would have a wake in your house. So your coffin would be right in your parlor or your front foyer or foyer, however you pronounce it. So it had the big 8-foot doors, 10-foot doors. And these things were not standard doors. They were heavy wood, 10-foot doors that were extra wide. They weren't I think it's a normal 36-inch door. I think these were like 48-inch, so that when you pulled them both open, they were, I mean, it made a huge space. So there would not be a problem for pallbearers to carry a coffin in and put it on two things like a sawhorse, something like that, a table, something. As I'm up there on the porch, I knock on the door. I open, they had the screen door on there that did not belong. So I open the screen doors and turned the knobs on because the knobs were in the middle of the doors. Talk about character. Turned the knobs, but obviously it was locked. It was closed. Just then, the realtor comes up. She drives up. She's looking at me like, oh God, I got a live one. And she comes up, introduces herself. I did the same. I give her my letter. You know, back then you had to have an approval letter. I just gave it to her. And she looked at the letter and she looked at me. And I said, is there a problem? And she said, no, I just don't know if you really want this house. And I said, why don't you just let me be the judge of that? I understand. This is an older house, but my parents used to buy older houses in Ohio and renovate them. So I'm no stranger to this. And it doesn't scare me. And so she's like, okay. And I said, by the way, does someone live here? No. I said, really? I said, I thought I saw somebody upstairs. And the moment that I said, I thought I saw someone upstairs, she like startled and jumped back. And she said, just a minute, I have to go to my car. I thought, what in the world? Now, at this time, my darlings, there were no cell phones. Dad didn't have a cell phone, didn't have anything, nothing. Didn't have a cell phone. So I'm thinking, what the heck is she going to do in her car? So she comes up with these papers and she looked rattled. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm just not going to say anything. She opens the door. And when she went to open the door, it was like somebody was behind it and pushed it closed. I literally thought that poor woman was going to come unglued. And I thought, oh, here we are. And I said, well, she said, oh, there's a problem with the door. And I said, well, do you mind if I try? She said, no. So I turned the knob. And not only did one door open, they both opened at the same time. I didn't say anything, but she saw it. And she said, she said, I'm waiting for maybe somebody to come along. You don't mind going through here yourself, do you? And I thought, oh, here we go. I said, no. She said, well, it's not furnished or anything. The only thing that you're going to see is a portrait that's painted that's over the stairway. And I said, oh, okay. So I said, yeah, it'll just be a few minutes. I'm just going to go and look in every room. So I started off in a home like this. When you walk into it, it's usually a grand foyer, something like that. And it will have a stairway ahead of you. But this one didn't. This stairway was located in a different place. Hi there. Greetings to Nightlight Paranormal for being here from Ohio. And that is my home state. I was born and raised there. So welcome into the chat, Nightlight Paranormal. Love it. Thank you. Thank you. I love it when paranormal people come in and when we can share things. So thanks for being here. So I'm walking through. You're welcome. Oh, goodbye, darling. I'm walking through, and when you first go into a big home like this, and this thing was a monster. Just to be like deputy. From now on, I'm just going to be like deputy. So This thing was a monster. But of course, I was in Virginia and I love that accent. So you walk in, huge foyer. To my left, a big parlor room fireplace. To my right, a big dining room area fireplace. And then through there were two, I don't want to say swinging doors, but they were on a hinge that you could go directly into the kitchen. So I chose to go that way. I'm going through the kitchen. I come out through the back. I mean, this place was like a maze. It really didn't make sense. If you want to know the truth, I don't know why it was built like that. It didn't make sense, but I loved it. What really does anything need to make sense? If you love it, right? Go for it. So I happened to come on this stairway and I looked over at her and I thought, what a lovely lady. This is about as close to her that I could get because she was lovely. And I thought, what a lovely lady. She's beautiful. But she just had this look, pardon me. She just had this look on her face that she just didn't want to be there. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to be there. You know. So I am looking around. I see this door over here and I thought, well, when I come back down, I'm going to go look. But then when you go back here, there's another little door underneath here. And it's very, very well hidden. So I go up these steps and I go on the landing and I'm standing right in front of her. And I look at her and I don't know why this came out. And I said, you are beautiful. And I said, I wonder if you're here. And if I buy this house, will you stay here with me? Now, I don't know why all this is coming out because believe me, my darlings, if at night I see some chick walk into my room in a misty type of, it's going to startle me. So I'm standing there, I'm smiling at her. I head up the steps and I get to right about here. And I start hearing some crying. A woman, not baby, just soft crying, not wailing and gnashing of teeth, soft crying. And it was like you hear it and no more. And I thought, oh, no wonder. She's got a look on her face. She doesn't want anybody to be here. Look at what she did with the doors. Hello. So I'm going up the steps. Now upstairs, it was cool, but it was weird because it was like this railing followed the whole entire upstairs and just kind of wrapped around. And then, of course, it had a back stairs for when they had servants. And I don't like to say that word, but that's the historical time of that it was, so that's the way it was. And servant stairs usually are very steep and very narrow. So I thought, well, I'm going to stay away from those because I can see me wiping out going down those stairs. And that chick on the porch doesn't want to come in. So it's going to be a minute before I'm found. And so I'm upstairs walking around and each room seemed like it connected with the other. Now, I just thought that was weird because I'm thinking, why would you want? But I get it because back then, if you've got kids, you want rooms. But why not just, walk out into the hall and right around into another room? So again, it was odd. I go in this room in the front of the house and I'm looking out this window. Good evening and welcome in everyone. So I'm looking out this window. That was a great room. It was a wonderful room. But I'm looking out this window. There was no curtain. And I realized that it was the window that I saw somebody go past. And I thought, oh, heck, is there somebody up here? Now, here's the rub, my darlings. In these old houses, there are no closets. That's when they bought those wooden chest of drawers, wooden wardrobes, wooden, those little things that you kept your clothes in. And back then, they weren't clothing hounds. They had just very little to get them through. So having a small wardrobe, you had your good Sunday go to meeting stuff. You had a couple of dresses to get you through the day, through the week. And then the week starts all over again. So nobody had that much back then. Few accessories, that was it. But there was nothing like that up there. So I'm thinking, I'm on the hunt. I'm thinking, okay, I'd better see if there is someone up here. Walking around through there. All of a sudden, I get in another room. And I hear crying, and it sounds like it's coming from downstairs. But it's the same crying, so I knew it wasn't the realtor. I knew it wasn't the realtor. Because I could see her standing outside waiting on me like, hello, chick, hurry up. So this was something. So now I couldn't find anyone. I made it through all these. And of course, my darlings, if you know me, I wear cowboy boots. That's it. I've always worn cowboy boots. I have a really nice black pair, and they're shorter. I don't look like I'm going to be roping any cows or anything, but they're shorter, and they have these little silver things on the tips. I have a black pair and I have a brown pair. That day I had on a black pair. So you could hear me, didn't sound like a saloon, but you could hear me walking through all this wooden stuff, right? So you knew where I was. So I'm hearing walking around downstairs. I go to the top of these stairs and I said, hello? Nothing. I thought, oh, hello. No one is here. No, I'm not into the spurs, my darlings. I don't have spurs that jingle, jingle, jingle. And I thought, I need to find that back stairway. I need to go down that back stairway. So I get to the back stairway. I open the door and this wave, I don't even know if it was heat. It literally felt like a warm breeze. I opened the door and it was like whoosh over me. And I thought, that's different because usually it's cool, but it can be if you've got this, usually it's anything. So I'm going down those stairs and about the third step, and I'm holding on to the walls because there's no railings, my darlings. Hello, you don't have codes back in the later 1800s. I'm surprised, though, that they actually could sell it, that it wasn't up to code, because you need railings in these places. And they did, it's unfortunate, but you have to take some rooms and make some bathrooms. I was very impressed of how they did that. They had 3 bathrooms upstairs, and they actually took one of the biggest rooms and carved it into 3 separate bathrooms with 3 separate entrances. Pretty inventive. Okay. So I'm going down these back stairs. All of a sudden, I felt like 2 hands like this grip me and give me a little nudge, just like that, just a little jerk. And I jerked. And I'm going to tell you, I left out a yowl that probably sounded like I stepped on a cat's tail with one of my cowboy boots. Seriously, because it startled me. And there I am, because these stairways are almost straight up and down, my darling. I mean, they can be treacherous. And I'm thinking, oh heck, you don't know if there's a stairway that, yeah, I was bumped all right. And while I'm saying bump, do me a favor if you're watching, and if you haven't yet subscribed and liked, I appreciate you if you would. So I collect myself, and I'm taking, so in this particular situation, hi Mima, in this particular situation, and I learned this a long time ago, if you're ever in a dark place and you're going down steps, make sure you rub the back of your heel. Like if you've got a step, make sure you rub your back of the heel so you can keep, knowing where you're at. Helps you be a little bit more steadier. So that's what I'm doing, because there's no light. And I didn't have a phone, obviously, weren't invented yet back 100 years ago when I was there. So I finally get to the bottom. And believe me, there wasn't much room from that bottom step to that door that you open up. And so I opened up, and there I am near the kitchen. I turn around to close the door, and I see this of a dress go past the upstairs. Because it was still light out. The sun was out. It was shining. So I'm seeing this. Here, let me show you like this. That's as quick as it went. Just like that. Don't you love how I have the props? Hello. So I thought, okay, well, let's, I'm not here to do an investigation, because I'm thinking to myself, Zell, this is an opportunity. And then I'm thinking, well, I've got this chick lady waiting outside that wants me to buy this house, but she won't come in. There's an issue. So I go downstairs. I shimmy my way through the rooms. And remember, I wanted to go through this door. But then I was standing in front of this door, and I hear a door unlatch. And it was this one. There's a little door right here. You see this? And I thought, I'm so sorry, Miss K. This can be very dangerous. Very dangerous. So I'm standing in front of this door, and I hear this door. These latches are they're not very sturdy to begin with. They're just, it's there to keep your friends out, pretty much. So I thought, okay, all right, somebody's wanting to lead me somewhere, but I'm not going to do anything. I go through this door, and it takes me into the oddest room that I've ever seen. There was a desk in there, and the room was huge. It completely threw me off. I would have never guessed with this very small door that you open it up, and it's this huge, high ceilings, huge, huge room with nothing but bookcases and this desk that was sitting in the middle. And I thought, oh, how cool is this office? How cool is that? Fireplace, just cool. So there was a chair. I sat down in the desk just to get myself a little acclimated. And I hear some steps. And I thought, oh, maybe she got brave enough to come in. So I got up, just walked moseying to the door because I'm still looking around. I put my hand on the side of the bookcase and it was loose. And I thought, oh, I hope I didn't do that because, this stuff is old. I hope I didn't. So I'm looking at it. And as I did that, this bookcase did a little jolt. And I thought, holy mackerel, there is a hidden door. Something is there. So I'm standing there. I thought, what am I going to do? So I went to the front door. She's standing out there. And I said, I don't think that I did this. And you may not know this, but one of the bookcases in the big room moved. And her eyes, and I said, not on its own. I just was feeling around as I was going out the door. And that was like, it had some give to it, but the whole bookcase giving, moved. Hello. And she looked at me like I was completely daft. I mean, seriously, she looked at me like I was getting ready to shapeshift. That's how she looked. Her soul was leaving her body because at this point, that was all she could take. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go back in, but I wanted to tell you because I don't want you to think that I'm damaging it. She goes, you can't damage this house. Okay. So I said, all right, I get it. Okay. I said, so can I go back in and explore a little bit? And so she looks at her watch. I said, well, if you have to go, she goes, no, I've got about 30 minutes yet. If you can just, she was trying to hurry my crack up, basically. So I'm like going back in there because I can't wait. I'm so excited and I want to move. I go back to this door and it's locked. And I thought, oh, okay. So then I go to the next door because it had clicked, the lock clicked. I opened up this door and it was weird. It was like this long, you know what, my darling JMS? That's exactly what this is. I do have my own show here, Telly, but thank you. I know exactly what you mean. This was a long, narrow closet that went the whole length of that great big room. But I noticed that there were gaps and some light was coming in. I'm thinking, what is this? So I'm walking through there. I get to the end and I can see into this big room from those little gaps. And I'm thinking, oh, heck no. Oh, heck no. You mean they're taking people in there and they're going to spy here? What were they doing? And what were they into? Hello. Hold on just a minute, please. This is the Shaggy Noodle. And he is purring like crazy. Say hello, Shaggy. All right. So I'm thinking, okay, something is up. There's a backstory. You'll figure it out here in a minute. This is for Jerry. This is Jerry loves this Shaggy Noodle boy. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something going on. Because this door almost looks like a false wall. You would not be able to see it. So I went to go back into this room and this room unlocked again. The door was unlocked. Now I thought, maybe, oh, can you hear him purring? Oh, are you he's hugging everybody. He's hugging everybody. He's hugging everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I know he's a baby.
So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hold on. There you go. Well, you know what, my darling? I've been offered that and I turned it down. Because I ain't making nobody any money. I'm making YouTube enough. So that's where the gig is gonna be. So okay, my darlings. I go back to this. I go back to the room. I shimmy that bookcase, and there was a lever on the top. And I thought, how on earth am I going to? So I'm moving this chair around. I couldn't move the desk. So I moved the chair around, got on standing on, I could have wiped out, and that would have been end. I would have been the one haunting this house. I get up there, and there's some papers on top of the shelf. And I thought, first of all, the first thing I thought was, well, nobody dusts. Nobody dusts around here. And then I'm thinking, oh, get over yourself. So I moved this, and it looked like a file room. It had drawers built in. It had drawers built in. So I don't think it was a safe room. I think it was kind of like sort of a safe. But there were these papers that were on top of the bookshelf, and those were probably a good 12 feet, probably high, 12 feet. So yes, they did not use shaving cream in that house. It would still be dust free. So I'm thinking, oh, I need this house. Now, back then, my darling, this was in the 80s. This house was $157,000 back then. Now it would be, hello, do you have two of them? I will steal them today. Hello. You know what I mean. It was a steal is what I mean. I don't steal anything. I think you know what I mean. So 157,000. I could have probably picked this joint up for 135. And that's what I'm thinking. Oh, 135 is going to get me where I need to go because I need to be putting some money into this joint. Just as I climbed down and had those papers, I hear this crying all over again. And this house viewing for me to purchase it, buddy, turns into an investigation. And I'm thinking, oh, heck, I've got 30 minutes. I didn't have a watch on. I thought, well, she'll come and get me. If she doesn't like it, oh, well, she can't take a joke, right? Hello. So I go back over to the desk because it's still light. The windows are there. There's no electricity here. Go. What are we doing over here? Huh? Eating my hair. Stop. Sorry, everybody. This is a new thing for this man. Let's just eat on mommy's hair. So I go over to the window, put these papers down on the desk, and my darlings, these are letters from the Civil War. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel, nobody has seen these. Now, this was in the 1980s, so about 100 years. They've been up there, covered with dust. I'm hacking like a crazy woman, but I got to see these letters. And it talks about this woman being there, and the man who built this house was an officer, but he didn't want to get married because evidently there was a child on the way. And he said it in a very kind way, but he was talking about evidently talking to his parents about going to war and faking his death so he did not have to come back and marry her. Because, things like that happened back then. And I'm thinking, no wonder she's bawling. So as I get into the letter reading, I hear Mrs. Chick come on the front porch. She comes in, hello, hello. She's irritated because I'm happy. No, she's irritated because I did overstay my welcome there. And I said, well, you can come on in. And I told her, I said, I found some letters. Well, all of a sudden, she became interested and I became happy because we were putting the pieces to the puzzle together. And it was these letters who talked about, I have a plan. And I thought, uh-oh. And he said, I have a plan that I will be able to come back. But the unfortunate part is she won't be there. If I have to go through marrying her, then I have a plan. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope you're steaming your hot dog buns down there in the hot place, pal, because I know what's up. Now, just to give you a little context, I'm allergic to cats too. That's why I get the fuzzy nose every time. Let's hope that I don't. So let me give you the context of this house. It was not in a neighborhood, even though it was. The houses were not built closely. There were woods, trees all around. That's why I liked it, because I like my privacy. So if I want to go on my front porch at 4:00 in the morning, I don't have my nosy neighbors like upstairs come down and looking to see what I'm doing. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, what's going on here? So she said, what do you think we need to do with these letters? And I said, I think you need to take them to your office. I think you need to call the Historical Society. I think you need to, because they need to be preserved. I think you need to make sure that, because there's some historical reference in there, that this man is a lieutenant in the army, and there needs to be, they need, regardless of the content, because we didn't get through them all, because on the top of this bookshelf, they were all scattered. And she said, well, I wonder if there's more behind the bookshelf, because I just left it open. And we found a few things back in there, but these letters, oh no, they were very damning. Pardon it, professional friend. They were. And you just kind of wonder if somebody, because I have this vision of somebody coming in the house, and if they would have seen those letters during this time frame, they may have arrested him. Even though he didn't say that he did anything, there was a reference of he had sort of kind of a plan. And, hey, have I always said, if I weren't honest enough, I could have just taken those letters and skippity-doo-dah right out of there. But I have a rule. And the rule is, especially in these types of circumstances where you're hearing doors and footsteps and seeing a chick and you're hearing crybaby and all this other stuff, you don't take anything. You leave it. You don't take anything. But in this particular case, there was some integrity that went with it historically. And since the realtor was dealing with an owner who I think was family, an elderly gentleman who had this, I told him, I said, I think this is important, and I think you need to do it. We went outside and we're looking through the letters, and there was one little letter in a lady's handwriting, and I know it was her, from Elizabeth. who was talking about how sad she was, that she felt that the lieutenant loved her, and soon they would be a family. So she wasn't saying, hey, do the right thing. She's being very eloquent about it, but she also knew during that time, you didn't do this sort of thing. And she said, I have given my life to you. I will be glad to be the mistress. I will be glad, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking, okay. So we left. I went home and I thought, oh, heck, I got to find some things out. I went to the Historical Society the next day, talked to the lady. I was there. And you know me, I took a fresh composition book, righty, all this stuff. The reality is, the story is very sad. However, there was enough there in the story that I called the realtor and I said, look, I'd like to buy this house, but there's a stigma that goes with this house. And that's according to the Historical Society. There's a stigma that goes with this house. But there's one thing that I need to find. And she says, what's that? I said, I'm not going to tell you. I want to go and I want to see it myself. So a gentleman from the Historical Society, who was just giddy with being thrilled to be able to get into this house, because you couldn't get in unless you had a qualified buyer, and I'd already given my letter of approval, got up. We got up to this painting, and I said, sir, could you do me a favor and take the painting down? And he looked at me and goes, why? I don't know. And I said, well, what are you going to do with this painting? It's not like somebody has claimed it. I'm not wanting to take it. I don't want to buy it. We're going to hang it up. But if you will do me a favor, and please take down the painting. So reluctantly, he and the realtor, cut from the same cloth, took down this painting. Now, this painting was a lot more huge. I had to make it a little smaller so it would fit in the frame of my background. But this painting was huge. They took it down, and I just happened to have a little something that I could pry the back of the painting off with. I just took it with me. I don't know why. It just came across for me that day, that little urge. Give me a second. Thank you. And I can tell you what, I keep looking around for this little spider because I'm like, I think he's gone though. I'll make sure that I give him a proper sending him off to the, hi there, Bad to the Bone Paranormal. Welcome in, welcome in. So yeah, it wasn't a crowbar. It was like a little penknife, just a little one. Swiss Army knife, really, kind of like a little. And then I took a John Wayne with me. And for those of you who knows what a John Wayne is, if you know, you know. So we took it down, and they were not happy with me. I said, look, call the police. What are you going to do? There's something here. And I looked at the Mr. Historical Society man, and I said, and you know it. And he looked at me, and it was like his face went white. And I said, mm-hmm. So we took a little bit of this back of the painting off, because you could tell there was like a sheet of something over it, and then there was the painting. There was a little note. There was a little note in the back of that painting. And the little note, I can't really remember what it said right now, but I can get the gist of it. And it was pretty much, to the person who finds this note, know that I am gone. Know that it was against my will. But also know that I will remain here around this house. I allowed love to overshadow my best. It wasn't interest, but it was something to that effect. May we all rest in God's peace. E. And I handed that over to the Historical Society man. And we just all kind of stood there. I said, she's here. She's here. And he said, yes, she is. So we called the sheriff. The sheriff comes out. We tell the story. And I'm going to tell you the story in a minute. And they decided to get cadaver dogs and go around the house. And wouldn't you know it, in the back where there was the little wooded area, this beautiful golden retriever mix. If you would have seen her, you would have thought that she was just this. You would have never guessed. But my darlings, it's my understanding that this dog could smell a cadaver 16 feet deep. That is something. The trainer that had this dog did a great job. That little dog, I loved on that little fellow, or little girl rather. I loved on that dog till I thought these people were going to be so mad, but she was just adorable. But I've never seen, this is just so interesting. I've never seen anything like this in my life. When that dog got the scent, she turned into, it was like a mask. She turned into an animal with a purpose. She knew the assignment. And they came out and they found a body. Here is the story. Here is the story. This young lady met the lieutenant while he was in another area of Virginia. Her father was also in the military, but her father didn't have a good reputation. But this lieutenant didn't know that when he first met Miss Elizabeth. They went out a few times and then the inevitable happened and she became with child. At first he was very happy until his superiors called him in because he lived in this house. And the idea of having this door beside this big, long door, evidently that smaller door was more covered. The lieutenant would take other military members, have dinners, etc., etc. And then afterward, they would go in and they would discuss things. But somebody from the regiment would go in this little door in the hall and would peep through into that big room and listen to what was going on. And this lieutenant on purpose would leave the room to either get more refreshments, whatever the case, and he would be going in this room and he would listen to what they had to say. One day, they started talking about Elizabeth. They started talking about how they knew that she was expecting and that it was the lieutenant. They also started talking about how they thought her father, I don't know why I'm whispering, but it just seems like it goes well with this, how they thought her father was a spy. Talk about, hello. And thank you, because you guys are my grifters. I'm a grifter. I just had to put that up. Somebody told me to put that up, so thank you very much. Hold on. Somebody just told me something. Thank you. I'm not paying attention, Captain. Thank you. I just saw it. Thank you. So, give me a second. Somebody needed something, and I needed to see it. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. Needed to take care of something. Where am I? Right there. Okay. So they started discussing things, They started discussing things about how they thought her father was a spy. They thought he was a spy for the North. So there was a collective decision in order to use this situation. The lieutenant decided that he was going to marry Elizabeth. And then someone, and because, hey, it's no different back then than it is right now, only they don't have Twitter and they don't have the internet to be yucky and sharing stuff. Someone who was in that room felt bad because they knew Elizabeth loved the lieutenant and nobody really liked him, but he was the lieutenant. Nate, I loved when Nan on your show and said it is a reverse grifter. She is a reverse grifter, and we just love Nan. Hope you're watching, Nan. Love you. So he decided he was going to marry her. And someone from that hidden door went to her father and told her father what was going on. Well, back then, those types of offenses you could get, done away with. So they were very cautious, and he told Elizabeth, and she didn't believe it. They even told her about the hallway door, and she didn't believe that. Until one day, she was there at the house because they had gotten married. She was there at the house, and some people came in that wanted to see the lieutenant. He took him in the door, and she could hear the door lock. She knew about that room and went in there and heard the lieutenant plan to get rid of her and said, if I end up not having the guts to do away with her, I will fake my death. I will go to another regiment, and I will carry on from there. And they had it all planned. He had it all planned with, all of his people and everything else. So that's when she decided, because she was expecting, that's when she decided, when they left, Horsey, she knew they were going to be gone for a while. She wrote a note and put it back behind the portrait. Her mother had died when she was a young girl in childbirth, when she was giving birth to her brother, Elizabeth's brother. So she grew up with her father, and she was very close to him. So now she put this little note behind her portrait. And the next day she sent word to her father through courier that she put a note behind the portrait. And then she wrote a letter, because she knew that he kept these important letters on top of the bookshelf. So she wrote a letter up there and said, I know what you're doing. And I have placed something somewhere that have told the truth. Well, while she was in there, she did not hear the horses. I was going to say the horses pull up. Hello. She didn't hear the horses pull up. She didn't hear the horses ride up. And he caught her putting that letter on the top of the shelf. He immediately sent word, and they unalived her father before he got the note. He came back. They came back. It was like over a couple of days. He came back. Now, I'm going to tell you, my darlings, okay, well, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about in cases right here, but I understand, and I get it. He came back and unalived her. So the body that was found by my little sweetheart golden retriever mix was Miss Elizabeth. And they could tell that she was with child. She was buried in the dress that was in this portrait. Now, I wish I could have been there. Of course, they're not going to let me go there because there's a forensic unit there. Hello. But I saw a picture, not of her, but kind of, sort of, and it was the same dress as this portrait. So it turns out that the owner of this home was a direct descendant of the lieutenant and was disgusted at what had happened. But these things happened. I mean, it's no different than what it is right now. Hello, can I just tell you? The only thing different is the media. But he did it because he thought that her father was a spy. He thought then there was going to be trouble. And unfortunately, he made some very unfortunate moves. No, my dog. No, I said she was my dog because she loved me and I loved her. Because I was just, I know I made the handler mad because I was just hugging on her so much because she was just so adorable. Um, so the end of the story is the lieutenant. They were in one of these battles, and I think it was in a battle of near Chattanooga, Tennessee. That was Chattahoochee or something. I don't know. And he was captured. He was an officer, and man, oh man, it wasn't pretty, under my understanding. But he got what he deserved. Pardon me. So it turns out this house was left to the lieutenant's sister. And then from there, it was handed down into family. No one, when I looked at this house in the 80s, no one had lived there. Had to be 30 years. Pardon me, 30, maybe 40 years. The house had sat empty. And it was in pretty good shape, I have to tell you. But at this point, I decided not to buy this house because I felt that I would be battling sadness constantly from the crying and everything else. So what I did do is I went to another home that I bought with my husband that was close to Fort Monroe in Virginia, that happened to be, of all things, I was able to take my 3 kitties, Tippy Canoe and Tyler too. We fell upon a house that was actually the great granddaughter of President Tyler, whose husband, she met this young man. They got married when they were 18. And when I went to buy the house, she was something like in her 90s. So she lived in that house all those years. In fact, they had slaves. Unfortunately, that's what it has back then, but they built the basement, and that whole house, that's the house where the vampire came up to the front porch. That's the house where my grandmother went into the basement. That was a whole other thing. So I passed on this house. I don't know if it's still standing or not. I've tried to find it. I don't know. I'm not going to put a lot of energy in it. As far as I know, they took the portrait of Elizabeth, and they've got it hanging in some museum in Virginia, and it's on loan by the family, where they'll take it back for like 3 months, and then they'll take it. So they took it to someone who could restore historic paintings and so forth. And then they have it on loan, and they loan it out to different. But that's the story.